are Independence Mall. That's Independence Hall, that's the Liberty Bell, and that's the Independence Hall Visitor Center. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get tickets for Independence Hall, what you see when you visit Independence Hall, take a look at the Liberty Bell, and I'm going to show you tips and tricks on how to guarantee yourself tickets, how to make things go by faster, and things you should check out that, you know, not everybody knows that you can go in all of the buildings in Independence Hall, not just that building. So let's get ready as we do the historic stuff here in Philadelphia. And this is the Independence Hall Visitor Center. You go in here. Well, you know what? Let me show you what they got inside the Independence Hall. If you're coming to Independence Hall and you know you're going to be here, I highly recommend doing this or call that 1877 number. You could reserve a ticket 24 hours advance, and it's only $1 a ticket. A lot of tour groups come to Independence Hall early in the day. So sometimes you might not be able to get a ticket until like 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you reserve a ticket, that's definitely an easier, guaranteed way to see Independence Hall. Is you go to this National Park Service desk, and you can get a ticket from a park ranger. And on this TV screen, they'll tell you what times you could get into Independence Hall. All the tickets for Independence Hall are timed. You cannot get in without a ticket unless you are visiting in January. So one of the movie theaters inside the Independence Hall Visitor Center plays these clips of all these things that you might want to check out, like the Barnes Foundation, the Eastern State Penitentiary. So if you're here and you can't think of anything else to do besides the Liberty Bell or Independence Hall, one of the things that you might want to check out is Reading Terminal Market. It's only like 4 blocks in this direction. Pretty much any type of food you want, you go here. It's one of the best spots in the city, and it's a great way to taste Philly food and not traveling too far if you're just in this section of the city. And in this other little movie theater, they play a movie telling you about the history of Independence Hall and all the stuff that happens in this area. This is the line for the Liberty Bell, and here's a little trick I can teach you. You see these people, they're waiting in the line. And I'll tell you what the line really is. You have to go through a metal detector to go inside the Liberty Bell. And you see these people. It's a process. It takes a while. People have to take off belts. So the longest part of the Liberty Bell is getting into the Liberty Bell. So if you don't want to wait in line, or if you're carrying a concealed weapon, you can just see the Liberty Bell this way. And there it is. You can see the crack a little bit this way. And if you go inside the Liberty Bell, you gotta like stand behind the fence. So it's, whatever, it is what it is. And they have different types of languages that you can hear the story about the Liberty Bell. Let's do Japanese.
自由の鐘リバティベルへようこそ。自由の鐘は250年以上にわたって。
My ticket for Independence Hall is for $120. It is now 5 of 1. So this building was Philadelphia City Hall back in the late 1700s. Well, not the late 1700s, because from 1790 to 1800, this was the first Supreme Court of the United States. There you are. There you go. Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. There you go. That's it. The first Supreme Court of the United States. There's also a gift shop in here. This is right behind the old City Hall, right where you go through the metal detectors. This is the American Philosophical Society. It was founded by Ben Franklin. And the American Philosophical Society, this is their museum. They actually have another building across the street. The journals of Lewis and Clark are these people, the American Philosophical Society, they're stored here. The first pictures taking on the moon, first learned society in the British plantations in America. And this building was built in 1786 to 1789. Not a reproduction of it. So here we are. I'm inside the Independence Hall Center. This is the back part of the park. You can't, if you look, there's no way to get into this section of Independence Hall unless you You don't need a ticket to get into this section of Independence Hall. You only need a ticket if you want to go inside the Independence Hall building. There are other things to see and do here at the Independence Hall. Independence Hall, that's what it's called. Why am I thinking of a bigger term? So one thing you could do is you go into this room, and this is called the Great Essentials. You go in here.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. That is the Inkwell Stand that the Founding Fathers used to sign the Constitution. So George Washington, Ben Franklin, John Adams, all of those men, plus more, used this inkwell. When the Declaration of Independence was read publicly, this paper, that copy of the Declaration of Independence, is what Sheriff John Nixon used to read the Declaration of Independence publicly for the first time. That's the actual document. It's older than the Declaration of Independence that is on display in Washington, D.C.
You're going to step up to the room on your right.
Okay.
We're standing here in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. This might look a little less familiar, but do I look innocent or guilty? I don't even finish the question here. So folks, it's around this period of time that they start using the phrase innocent until proven guilty. I imagine you probably wouldn't have felt that way standing here in the prisoner's dock. I keep emphasizing the word stand because this is where the term stand trial comes from. They meant it, you would stand trial. This painting dates back to 1785, but we already know that's decades after they first start meeting here.
Folks, the only room know all about it. Do not stop in the middle to take photos, guys.
The oldest delegate to represent both of the significant events. We can imagine him here at the Pennsylvania table. Anybody know who I'm talking about? Yeah, Ben Franklin is 81 years old when he attends the Constitutional Convention. His colleague, Gouverneur Morris, said that at times he needed to be carried in here in a sedan chair. A buggy with Ben and pegs on both sides for him to get carried around the city and brought into the Constitutional Convention. But he was considered a peacemaker of that event, so it's important that he was here. This is an original piece of furniture. This was made here in Philadelphia in 1779. So John Hancock didn't sit in this chair, but George Washington did when he presided over the Constitutional Convention. So as we're picturing this space, you can imagine his 6'2" frame taking up the space of that chair.
I have done the tour of Independence Hall. It's probably like the 20th time I've done it. She was by far the best park ranger ever to do the presentation. Bravo to her. And I just want to get a picture of this. This is Thomas Jefferson's walking stick. That's his actual walking stick. There's the rising. And there it is, the rising sun chair. The only two items actually touched by a founding father. They have this bronze statue of George Washington, and that's kind of new. There was a masonry, a stone statue of Washington, and it was getting kind of weathered down, so they took that down and put this bronze statue up. You can see the masonry statue of Washington in Philadelphia City Hall. This tells you Abraham Lincoln stood here when he raised the flag on Independence Hall, February 22nd, 1861. And if you go over here, this tells you this John F. Kennedy, President of the United States, stood here when he delivered his address on the independence of nations, July 4th, 1962. Now, those two presidents have something in common. They were both assassinated. So presidents never used this side of Independence Hall to give a speech.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome to Congress Hall. The building served as the capital of the United States from 1790 to 1800. Introduction. Towards the front of the room, we have some period pieces. The only thing we're absolutely certain have been here is the Speaker of the House's chair up on the platform. The Speaker of the House's chair is original. On March 4th, 1797. That is when and where John Adams will take the oath of office to become the second President of the United States. A peaceful transfer of political power between two unrelated individuals that was occurring in a world governed by kings and queens. Hey, welcome to the United States Senate. The Senate, as you are looking at it, is how it would have looked from 1796. That is after Tennessee had become our 16th state, giving us 32 senators attending. 93. It is here in the Senate where George Washington will take his oath of office for his second term as president.
This is the entrance to the Liberty Bell. If you have a belt, here's number one tip. If you're a man, or actually I think women wear belts too. If you have a belt, start taking it off now. You're gonna have to take it off. No weapons. So if you have a weapon, you can't come in. Unfortunately, one of the sad things about Philadelphia is we didn't really preserve all of our history. For example, what looks like to be the front of a house, and this is the house where George Washington and John Adams lived when they were presidents of the United States. And you would be able to go up, knock on the door, I'm not sure if George would answer the door himself. He had a lot of slaves living here with him. And one of the things about this display, it doesn't just talk about the presidential house. It talks about the slaves that lived here in the presidential house. They talked, in that building, they talked about, men being free and liberty and all that stuff. But if you go right down the street where George was living, he had a bunch of slaves. He had slaves. He had a lot of slaves. And these lines right here, this white marble line, is kind of an outline to show you what a room would look like. And the only thing that you can actually see from the presidential house is this foundation. And they recently just unearthed this within the last 25 years. So that's pretty cool. So that's George Washington's basement, John Adams' basement. The house was owned by one of the founding fathers named Robert Morris. Robert Morris gave this house to the presidents to live in. You see on this wall, there have names of 9 people, and these are the slaves that George Washington had when he lived here. Hercules was his chef. Oni Judge is a woman who escaped. She escaped for freedom from this property, and what she did is they have the slave quarters to Washington's house, or the slave quarters to, when Washington lived here, the slave quarters was about here in this spot. And what they say, Oni Judge, one night she walked out this door, and you can see they have her footprints on the ground. Oni Judge went out this door. Oni Judge went out this way, following the footsteps. And if you take these footsteps, they would go all the way down to the Delaware River, which is that way, and she escaped for freedom. Now, George Washington sent people looking for her. She didn't just get to escape and hide. She had to live and hide. She had to hide for a long period of time of her life. So that's it. That's my little walk around Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell. I started my tour of Independence Hall around 1 o'clock, and it is now 2:35. So in an hour and a half, I did the Independence Hall tour. I did the Senate and Congress tour. I got to see the historical documents in the West Wing, Supreme Court of the United States, and the Liberty Bell. And that's... People travel all around the world just to do what I did. And that's one of the great things about living in this wonderful city is once in a while you want to go see something Ben Franklin touched. You want to see a chair George Washington sat in. You want to go look at the bell with the crack in it. Do whenever you want.